This video is produced by Maestria Media. Sidious stands in the hazy mists of Dathomir, the armies of the Sith battling behind him against clones, Night Sisters, and droids that he had collectively aggravated through resurrecting the ancient Sith Empire. Anakin stands before him with his lightsaber igniting, heading a force of Jedi that was comprised of Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Master Windu. Mother Talzin also stands with them, ready to cast her dark spells upon her Sith rival. "Stand down, Sidious," Anakin commands, pointing his lightsaber towards the Dark Lord. Sidious merely cackles. "You still think that Sidious could have done this on his own? That puny, rule of two era Sith Lord? You think that he could have resurrected the greatest army that the galaxy has ever seen?" Sidious's hands crackle with lightning and he prepares to fire a blast at his foes. "Sidious is no more. I am the Sith Emperor of many names. I have seen your countless eras pass, and I know secrets that you could never even dream of. Your galaxy will fall, Skywalker, and your precious Jedi Order will be reduced to dust." "Not if we have anything to say about it," Anakin shoots back. "Whoever you are, your war of aggression ends today." "So be it, chosen one. We shall see if you are so confident when I reduce you to ash." Anakin and his Jedi task force brandish their weapons. "You will try," Anakin says. "Then, the battle for the galaxy begins." Have you ever wondered what would have happened if the Sith Empire had invaded during the times of the Clone Wars? Well, if so, then you're in for a real treat today, because that's exactly the topic that we'll be exploring in this video. So, buckle up, grab your freshest bowl of Bantha Stew, and get ready, because this is going to be an absolutely Banthatacular ride. Welcome, dear Star Wars fans, to What If the Old Republic Sith Empire had invaded during the Clone Wars.
Chancellor, our campaign in the Outer Rim has been going very well. The clones are making steady progress, particularly under the command of General Skywalker and Commander Tano. We're gaining significant ground on Separatist holdouts, even if Dooku's propaganda tells you otherwise. We also have reason to believe that our Special Forces operatives have been effective in taking out critical political targets of the Separatist cause. Things are proceeding as planned, Admiral Wolf Yularen states as he briefs Palpatine on the status of the war, standing at ease in front of his desk. Palpatine, who was staring out the window considering what the Admiral was telling him with a careful ear, then turns his chair to face the esteemed military officer. "Well then, this is very good news. Very good news indeed," Palpatine replies. "Our clones are very brave and valiant." "Do you have any new orders, Chancellor?" Yularen inquires. "No, I'll leave the fighting to you. Continue the Outer Rim sieges, as they are progressing now," he says. "Thank you, Chancellor," Yularen says back, saluting. As Yularen leaves, Palpatine closes his eyes, soaking everything in. His plan was going according to how he had envisioned it, and the galaxy was slowly entering the palm of his hand. He smiles, entering a deep state of Sith meditation, focusing his mind on the dreams that were to come. However, as he does so, something bizarre begins to happen to him. A vision comes to his mind of his Sith forefathers. Many of the ancient emperors stand before him, their power palpable. Their faces twist together in a swirling commune of the damned, each whispering to Sidious in an ethereal voice. For a moment, Palpatine is lost in a sea of dark energy and the ancient visages of eras long past. However, after an instant of confusion, a clear image emerges from the chaos. Palpatine's jaw drops as he recognizes the face. It's Darth Vitiate, one of the most infamous and revered Sith Emperors of the past. "Lord Vitiate," Palpatine muses, overwhelmed with a sense of respect. "To what do I owe this honor? How would you reach me from the world of the dead?" Vitiate once again morphs into something new, the shape of Valkorion, ruler of the Eternal Empire. "The dark side is a pathway to many abilities that some consider to be unnatural." Sidious cocks his head. "Will you not share your secrets with me?" he asks. Valkorion smiles. "For years my spirit has been drifting, Well, I've been able to bind my soul to this world and consume many hosts. My identity has slowly been degrading. I've been losing my sense of self, blending into the mist of those who have long passed. I require a new host.
Sidious narrows his eyes, wondering if Valkorion is going to say what he thinks that he is.
Is that why you're reaching out to me? Are you asking me to be your host?
He inquires. Valkorion's face then melds with Vitiate, creating an eerie mix of red-skinned Sith and human, his eyes going misty as the darkness begins to consume him.
I've been watching you for a long, long time, Sidious. I wasn't planning on asking.
The strange apparition begins chanting an archaic spell, and Sidious feels the blackness begin to swirl around him. In a moment of panic, he fires a burst of force lightning towards the apparition. However, the strange being simply laughs, sounding like a cosmic deity of the Force as it absorbs Sidious's attack with ease. Then, as Palpatine's eyes fill with fear, the strange, swirling storm of evil energy makes its way into his body, filling him with a bizarre sensation of immense power. Sidious's eyes are illuminated for a moment with crimson red before he cries out in pain, feeling an agony unlike anything that he'd ever felt before. Then, suddenly, he opens his eyes in his office again. This time, though, he's no longer Sidious. Now, there's a new host for the old Chancellor's body. Sidious smiles, curling his hand into a fist. Now, he was no longer Sidious. Now, Vitiate had returned. Following that, the Chancellor presses a button on his desk. "Masamida?" he asks. An instant later, the Togruta responds with a call through the speaker.
"Yes, Chancellor. What do you need?"
Palpatine's evil smirk grows wider.
"Prepare my ship. I have some old business to attend to. Keep my trip on a need-to-know basis."
"Right away, my lord. I will fill your spot in the Senate while you're gone," Amida replies, signing off. Vitiate, now occupying another powerful Sith's body, smiles, eager to see what would happen next. Soon, the galaxy would be his. Vitiate, now containing the memories of Darth Sidious, maneuvers his starship into the unknown regions, remembering the coordinates to his old seat of power, Dromund Kaas. When he arrives, he sees that the planet is darkened compared to its former glory. He shakes his head, filled with rage at the state that his empire had been left in. The Sith had been demolished, put to shame by this pitiful republic that now dominated the galaxy. Strength and passion in the Empire had been replaced by a foolish democracy that couldn't stand for anything and fell flat on its face as soon as a Separatist threat emerged. Perhaps Sidious's plan to usurp democracy by playing both sides of the war had been a good one. However, compared to the might of the old Sith Empire, it was pathetic. This galaxy needed a show of force, and Vitiate would reclaim his old throne with glory. In that moment, Vitiate closed his eyes, falling deep into the dark side of the Force. In his head, he could hear the screaming cries of ancient Sith, long dead. He could sense the spirits of many dead Sith who could not find rest and who had linked themselves to objects within the valley of Dromund Kaas. And he could hear their restlessness. Vitiate, knowing that he possessed many bodies before, and having explored a significant amount of the dark alchemy of the Sith in the shadows over the years, knew secrets that not even Darth Plagueis the Wise could discover regarding immortality. He had essentially become a deity himself, and the dark side flowed through his veins. In that moment, Darth Vitiate let out a bellow that shook the foundations of Dromund Kaas, crying out to all the powerful Sith who lay dormant in the valley.
"My brothers and sisters in death, rise!" Vitiate raised his hands, and he hears the ground shaking below him. With a significant amount of effort and strain, he brings the bodies of the ancient Sith up from the bowels of the earth, feeling his energy begin to drain. However, he continues to push forward, knowing that this would be the beginning of the end for this pathetic republic. Vitiate's heart races, his blood pumps faster to his head, but he continues to pursue his goal, straining himself in the frail, mortal body of Sidious. However, finally, his goal is accomplished. Vitiate opens his eyes, huffing from exertion, and he sees the fruit of his labor. Before him, many of the ancient Sith stand there, shocked at the fact that their strong, mortal bodies had once again been resurrected. While he's already exhausted, Vitiate uses his last burst of energy to send out a message to those present.
Sith of old, your Emperor has returned. Restore this world, rebuild our empire in the shadows. Soon I shall return once more. This galaxy is in chaos. We will bring order to this place, and we will reclaim our rightful place as rulers. Vitiate's message transports telepathically to all of the resurrected Sith. They raise their fists in fury, excited to resume their conquest of the galaxy. Then, Vitiate uses his remaining energy to board Sidious's ship and get into the cockpit. He puts in the coordinates for Coruscant, putting the autopilot on to leave Droman Kos and return to the galactic capital. Then, he collapses in the pilot's chair. While this body was frail, Vitiate would need to continue using it for the time being. He still needed to manipulate things behind the scenes, and he would continue preparing the galaxy for the arrival of the renewed Sith Empire. However, with the memories of Sidious in his mind, Vitiate could see the possibility that he could take hold of a young, new host, Anakin Skywalker. Vitiate then falls asleep, his mind drifting into the realm of dreams. When Vitiate awakens, his ship is in orbit of Coruscant. He lands his ship, experiencing no issues with the air control as he does so. Stealthily, Sidious sneaks back into his Republic office, narrowly avoiding the attention of many senators as he does so. He returns to his desk, sitting down and savoring the moment as he does so. Not only did he have full control of all galactic political structures, but Vitiate had now also begun to rebuild his old empire. Soon the pieces would fall into place, and the entire galaxy would be under his control. After a couple moments of silence, Vitiate turns his chair around and presses the button on his desk to contact Maestria Media. The holographic image of the Togrutan advisor materializes on his desk almost immediately.
Yes, Chancellor. How can I be of service? Did you have a productive trip? The Vice-Chancellor asks.
Yes, my trip was very productive.
However, after seeing the conditions of the galaxy at war, I believe that perhaps Vitiate pauses, contemplating his next words carefully.
Reinvigorating address from the Chancellor would help the Republic.
You would like to address the Senate, sir?
Maestria Media replies.
Vitiate nods.
Yes, nothing would bring more joy to my heart.
Maestria Media nods in turn.
We will have you speak at the next Senate session,
the Vice-Chancellor says.
I look forward to hearing your address.
Vitiate smiles.
Yes, of course. I look forward to giving it. Thank you, Moss. That will be all.
Maestria Media nods respectfully before signing off. The next day, Vitiate rises in his desk into the Senate chambers to a thunderous applause from the senators in attendance. Vitiate smiles, knowing that he had the entire galaxy on his side now. He would have to keep these politicians busy so that they didn't notice the buildup in the unknown regions. Vitiate, in Palpatine's body, takes a deep breath and then begins his speech.
My galactic friends, this is a time of utmost importance in the history of our great republic. He begins. Our clones battle with the greatest of valiance alongside their courageous Jedi generals to back the Separatist scourge that threatens our unity. Dooku's deliberate attacks on sovereign worlds under our protection will not go unnoticed. As a republic, for centuries we have stood on principles of peace,
prosperity, and the protection of those in need. Vitiate pauses, eating up the attention of the crowd, even though he hates and disagrees with every single word he's spewing. But it's necessary, and he uses that attention to fuel his persuasion. We will not let that reputation fail in these fragile moments. The Senate bursts into applause. Chants of Palpatine emerge in every known galactic language, and Vitiate nods humbly, basking in the glory. Eventually, once the crowds die down, Vitiate continues. That is why, dear senators, I would implore each of you to vote in favor of continuing this war. We need new clones on the front lines to support those who have become battle-hardened and weary. We require more ships to transport supplies and break through Separatist blockades. We need more esteemed Academy officers to graduate and lead our troops to victory on the front lines. If the Separatists and their counterfeit Confederacy continue to push, then so shall we. The Republic shall prevail! As Vitiate concludes his short speech by telling senators that he would continue to stand up for them and their people, he notices a variety of reactions from the crowd. Most senators are incredibly enthused, captivated by his force-enhanced speech. However, Vitiate could also sense some apprehension from others. The delegation, specifically from Naboo, Chandrila, and Alderaan, did not seem to feel as up to the challenge as others. Perhaps they would be difficult to sway. However, what did the opinions of a few matter when most were in his favor? Soon it would be irrelevant anyway. As the Chancellor watched the majority of the Senate vote for increasing military spending, he knew that they would be easy to manipulate. His plan would continue onwards with little intervention from these puny politicians, and the galaxy would soon be in his hands. Soon after his speech, when he enters his office again, Vitiate hears a knock at the door. Enter, he says. A couple of seconds later, Anakin Skywalker, the potential host that Vitiate had identified earlier, walks into the room. Immediately, Vitiate recognizes him from Palpatine's memories. This was the Chosen One, the young man who Sidious had been manipulating for years into his pocket. Vitiate could sense the Force energy radiating from Skywalker, and he understood why Sidious wanted him to join the dark side as his new apprentice. Vitiate intuitively knows, again, that this would be such a perfect host for his soul. A body with such strength and Force aptitude would fit the Emperor well, and he would have to be patient. Ah, young Skywalker, what brings you in? Would you like a cup of Bantha brew espresso? Vitiate asks. Anakin nods. Yes, Chancellor. That would be excellent, he says. Vitiate makes Anakin a cup as he sits down on the other side of the Chancellor's desk. I thought they had you tasked with being in the Outer Rim sieges. What brings you back to Coruscant? He asks, Anakin receiving the cup. The Jedi Council thought that maybe some time off would be good for me, Anakin says. Plus, I couldn't miss your speech to the Senate. That was phenomenal, Chancellor. Vitiate smiles, taking a sip of his own Bantha brew. Thank you. It is my duty to keep the people invigorated. Anakin's face goes dark, though. Vitiate notices a cloud of anxiety forming around the young Jedi. What has you down, my friend? He asks. Anakin sighs. I'm just getting a little bit tired of this war. That's all. Maybe I've been speaking to Padme too much. However, it all feels pointless. There's so many deaths. Ahsoka left the Order. Seeing all this suffering, it just doesn't make any sense. Why not just seek peace, Chancellor? He asks. For a moment, Vitiate ponders Anakin's words. He wonders what Palpatine would say in response. He was a conniving manipulator, like many Sith. However, he would have to play his cards just right. Anakin, Dooku continues to ravage our people with this war. It isn't my choice to continue it. The Separatists will not stop until they've humiliated us and devastated as many of our worlds as they can. They aren't just seeking secession, my friend. They want to make sure that nobody wants to join the Republic again. This great institution that has stood for thousands of years shall not collapse under my watch, Palpatine iterates. For a moment, Anakin is silent. You're right. Perhaps I'm simply having a difficult time reconciling my duties as a Jedi with being a general at war. I wonder every single day if Ahsoka was right when she left the Order.
Maybe she was, Anakin says, his eyes glazing over. Palpatine puts his hand on Anakin's shoulder. She chose her path, Anakin. Now, it's time for you to choose yours. Anakin takes a moment to contemplate these words before nodding and standing up, taking his final sip of Bantha brew. Thank you, Chancellor. Your wisdom is appreciated, as always. He shakes Vitiate's hand, looking him directly in the eye. Of course. You can come and visit me anytime you need, Anakin, Vitiate says, walking Anakin to the door. I always enjoy speaking to my Jedi generals candidly. When Anakin leaves, Vitiate returns to his desk, and a smile creeps across his face. The anger that Vitiate had sensed in the young Jedi was so deep-seated, and Vitiate could sense that he held attachments outside of the Order. He was conflicted. The next generation of Sith seemed promising. That evening, Anakin could sense that something had been strange about the Chancellor. He'd visited his close confidant many times, and he had been in his presence on multiple occasions. The warm demeanor of the grandfatherly Chancellor had still been present, but there was something about him that just felt different. His advice had been colder and less personal than normal. It almost felt as though he'd been speaking to Anakin in a robotic sense. Before bed that night, Anakin decides to meditate in order to calm his mind. He enters his state of serene calm, hoping to avoid the nightmares and anxieties that had been plaguing him recently. At first, his mind experiences clarity. The only thing that Anakin can feel is his breath, as he is in a perfect state of serenity. However, a couple of minutes later, Anakin begins to experience something far more dire. He sees the faces of innocents being massacred. Beings with red faces and powerful command of the ancient force wield immense capacity for suffering, driving civilians, clones, and droids to their deaths in a fiery hellscape of a world shrouded in darkness. Anakin's heart begins to race as an omnipresent cackle rumbles across the landscape, and the ancient beings begin chanting in a language that is long lost to time. Anakin feels overwhelmed, especially when he sees a figure clothed in dark robes at the top of a blood-red cliff, casting bolts of lightning from his fingertips. He feels himself drawn closer to this figure, commanded to him by a powerful presence in the Force. Despite clawing away to get from whatever this specter of darkness was, Anakin cries out in fear, unable to steer himself away from this figure. Then, as he continues to approach, a face becomes clear. It's Sidious, with black, pupilless eyes underneath a dark hood. Anakin startles out of his meditative state, panting hard. He looks around his room, once more grounding himself to his surroundings. He takes a deep breath, centering himself in the room, experiencing the serenity of his Jedi chambers. Anakin couldn't help but wonder about what he had just experienced. He knew that the Council had been searching for a hidden darkness, but surely it couldn't have been Palpatine, could it? Even though it's late, Anakin still decides to call Obi-Wan. He's fortunate because his friend is still awake as well. Anakin, what are you doing awake at this hour? He asks, rubbing his eyes. I need to talk to the Council about something as soon as possible, Anakin replies. Can't it wait until morning? Obi-Wan asks, yawning. I suppose that it can. Anakin pauses for a moment, looking at his friend. I just need someone to talk to. Anakin proceeds to tell Obi-Wan about his strange sensation when he'd been speaking with Palpatine earlier, along with his dream about the dark figure. Obi-Wan strokes his beard, nodding as Skywalker tells him the story. He internalizes it, contemplating it carefully. When Anakin finishes, Obi-Wan takes a moment to process what his former Padawan had said. How intriguing, Kenobi muses. Well, I empathize with you. You know what the Council says, don't you? You can't always trust visions and feelings. They can be misleading. Anakin shakes his head, frustrated. I know, Obi-Wan, but I'd still like to try. Maybe they'll listen to me just this once. I know that they've been searching for hidden darkness. I'm starting to think that there's something there that's at least worth investigating. Obi-Wan nods. Perhaps it will be worth a meeting. I don't know if the Council will listen, but it's worth a try. Anakin then bids his friend adieu and falls asleep, hoping that the next day would go well. When he wakes up, however, Anakin's meeting with the Council goes just about as expected. They don't listen to him, and Yoda cautions him not to listen to his visions because they're a path to dark desires. In addition, the future is always in motion, and this could be something that never comes to pass. While Anakin understands their reasoning, he's still frustrated. There's something strange going on, and the Council just couldn't see it. As Republic forces are spread thin, and the Separatists continue to focus their attacks on the Outer Rim, Vitiate sees an opportunity to begin striking. He enters a deep meditative state, projecting his consciousness across the galaxy to Dromund Kaas. There, he sees how effective his Sith Council has been in mobilizing their empire. The planet is almost entirely rebuilt, and the Sith race has started conquering nearby worlds once more. Their slave labor force is enough to sustain the construction of a grand empire, and the military caste of the empire has continued to expand.
How goes the rebuilding of the Sith Empire?
Vitiate calls to the head of his council. As soon as the council hears Vitiate's call, they fall to their knees, somewhat shocked by his sudden arrival as a specter.
My Emperor, the leader of the council says, the reconstruction has been going well. We have uncovered some of the ancient writings of our forefathers. Some of our alchemists have been bringing back the beasts of the great hyperspace wars. We have brought our great society to some of the nearby worlds. We have rebuilt our grand city of Dromund Kaas, and our people have started to resettle the valleys of Korriban. The Sith are strong, and we shall soon be ready to move.
Vitiate smiles.
Excellent. I have continued to keep the galaxy preoccupied with division and infighting to notice the buildup of our government to the Outer Rim. This republic will soon crumble, and the glory of the Sith shall once more prevail. We will no longer be required to hide in the shadows. Go now. Begin conquering more worlds. Start to show your presence to the galaxy. We will be victorious.
When Vitiate's soul returns to Palpatine's body, he knows that he must stand by his mission to prepare the galaxy for the arrival of the Sith. Perhaps he could lean into the senator from Naboo's resoluteness in pushing peace in order to do so. If the Republic and the Separatists were preoccupied with peace talks, it would be an excellent opportunity for the Sith to strike, especially when all parties involved in negotiations would all be at the same place. So, in a 180-degree pivot from the stance that he'd taken the day before, Palpatine addresses the Senate, indicating that if Dooku is ready for peace talks, then he would be willing to discuss them with the Confederacy and begin demilitarization. This sends shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Many pro-peace citizens are pleased with the move. However, some of the more militaristic pocketbooks who funded Palpatine's political campaigns and who are profiting from the war did not take so kindly to the news. It didn't matter, though. Soon, they would all be reduced to ash. When Anakin sees this move, he's slightly confused. The day before, the Chancellor had been saying that he wanted to continue the war. The vision of the tyrannical war had involved Palpatine. Now, he was announcing that he wanted peace talks. What was going through the most powerful man in the galaxy's head? Anakin couldn't fathom it. Ironically enough, the planet that volunteered to be a mediator for the negotiations is Mandalore, head of the League of Neutral Systems. After Duchess Satine is killed at the hands of Maul, and after Almec was installed as the new puppet ruler, Maul sees a perfect opportunity in this to strike at Palpatine if he comes to the planet. Dooku and the Jedi all at once. Ideally, they would all be there, and a blow would be struck so severe that each of them could be taken off guard, and he could swoop in and gain as much power as he could in the ashes. It would be the perfect opportunity. Naturally, Vitiate asks for Dooku to be present himself so that the Sith could get a shot at him when they struck the world. He also asks Anakin, Padme, Bail Organa, Obi-Wan, and Yoda to be present with their clone battalions and leaders in a full display of unity. Thinking that this will be a good political statement, especially with Yoda and Dooku being able to shake hands as equals once more, ending the war. As the summit is scheduled, the fighting continues. However,
It appears that there's a path away from the total war of the galaxy. Or at least, that's what it seems. When all of the parties gather on Mandalore and the day eventually comes, Anakin immediately senses that something feels wrong. As he lands, and as the city welcomes Separatists and Republicans alike, and while he's standing next to the Chancellor, there's something that just feels off about what's going on to him. Everything seems like it's going too perfectly, especially when Almec welcomes him at the landing platform and brings him to the throne room. "Do you sense that something's off, Obi-Wan?" Anakin whispers to his friend. Kenobi narrows his eyes, nodding. "Yes, I do. I have a bad feeling about this," Obi-Wan replies. When they enter the throne room, and when all of the Jedi, politicians, and military officials sit down to finally sign a treaty, the cups of Bantha brew begin to rattle on the table. Anakin senses to look towards the Chancellor, and out of the corner of his eye, he notices blaster fire engulfing the outdoors. Then, he sees Rex and Cody instantly stand, speaking quickly to their communicators. "Sir, we have a problem," Cody exclaims. "The Mandalorians have started attacking, led by the Dathomirian that we've come to refer to as Maul. We need to get the Chancellor out of here, now!" One of the Separatist dignitaries stands in defiance. "This is a Republic ploy," he cries. "You have Mandalore on your side under this new administration, and you've now allied to try and assassinate Dooku." Rex scoffs. "My men are outside dying right now to that maniac. That's an absurd accusation." The Chancellor watches as the bickering continues, sensing his fleet coming closer towards Mandalore. These politicians wouldn't notice anything until it was too late. Vitiate looks outside the window, admiring the cunning of Maul and taken off guard while he was formulating his plan. But it wouldn't matter anyway with the arrival of the Sith. In fact, it would play right into his hands. Now, he could annihilate another adversary and keep these squabbling fools fully engaged in silly discourse. Dooku simply looked at the cool Chancellor, also maintaining his composure, a small smirk on his face. The Jedi looked at one another, their expressions glum. "I'm going out there to fight with my men," Anakin exclaims, frustrated. Rex bolts to attention. "I was getting tired of these politics anyway, sir." They're just about to sprint out of the room, but a Mandalorian guard waves to Almec, who lowers his head to listen. The guard whispers something, and Almec's face turns grim.
"My friends, I have more news." "What may that be, Prime Minister?"
Dooku inquires.
"More identified ships have entered our space. They're not Mandalorian, and they appear to be of ancient design. We recommend that all parties present escape or get to safety, as we do not know what their intent is."
Almec responds. Vitiate's heart skips a beat. His fleet had arrived. Now, the might of the Sith that he resurrected would be on full display. In an instant, the skies above light up. The soldiers fighting on the ground above them, the Confederacy and Republic fleets in the skies above Mandalore, are overwhelmed with a maelstrom of fire from the ominous ships in the sky. Completely taken off guard, many of them fall, exploding under the overwhelming fire of the massive Separatist presence. "Chancellor, let's move, now!" Cody calls. Anakin's heart sinks as he watches out the window. He sees many of his troops look up in silence, wondering what's going on in the skies above. Even Anakin has no clue.
"Master Yoda, we have to get them out of here,"
Mace Windu says. The clones in the room shelter the politicians, and everyone scrambles towards the door. Vitiate accepts his fate as some of the 212th clones sweep him up, covering him from any possible fire. He glances out the window. Even the ones whom Cody had called Maul is staring at the sky in awe, watching as new landing craft swarmed in from the Sith flagships. "We have to stay. We must learn more about these new attackers," Anakin exclaims. "Sir, I think we need to regroup. This battle's already lost. We should try to conserve as many troops as possible. This new foe needs to be studied. I want my men to be as effective as they can be. We can't keep fighting right now, General," Rex says. For a moment, Anakin stands there, seething as he sees landing craft hit the ground. Sith warriors pour from their doors, immediately slaughtering Mandalorians and clones alike. Even Maul, who's normally a vicious fighter, is caught off guard by the malice of the Sith. He cuts down many
with his twin blades, but eventually he retreats to the shadows. Understood, Rex. Let's get out of here. As many of the clones begin to evacuate the planet, even some of the Mandalorians, who normally put up a fight against the enemy, follow Maul in hopes of survival as he steals some of the ships from the landing dock, soaring into the sky above, which continued to be engulfed in flames. Vitiate is quickly escorted away, getting into a starship and managing to jump to hyperspace before he's attacked by any of the Sith. He escapes alongside Windu, Yoda, and the other senatorial dignitaries. They leave, accompanied by Cody and the clone units associated with the other Jedi. Vitiate uses the Force to ensure that his men do not fire upon them by accident. While under heavy fire, all of the dignitaries manage to escape, along with their clone commanders. However, the starships in orbit had been outright decimated. So, the small ground cruisers jumped to hyperspace as soon as possible, managing to narrowly escape the horrible situation that had engulfed Mandalore. Vitiate was pleased. The fact was that his warriors had invaded a society of historic warriors, Jedi, clones, and droids at the same time with extreme surprise and success, indicated that his people had the capacity to take the galaxy by storm. Even though there were still relatively few ancient Sith compared to the size of these armies, something could still be done. After some time to breathe, while the Jedi are discussing their next moves on the bridge and thinking about the implications of the fall of a leading member of the League of Neutral Systems, the communications officer pokes his head up from the pit.
Generals, we're receiving call from an unknown channel. Shall we put it through?
Curious about how somebody had gotten a secure channel with which to communicate with the starship, Yoda nods his head.
Let us go through. We must,
he says. To the shock of everyone on the bridge, the face of Maul appears in holographic form.
Your codes are far easier to obtain than you believe, Jedi Generals. Perhaps you should ensure more security of information for some of your lower ranks.
He muses. What do you want, Maul? Obi-Wan pushes back, a no-nonsense expression on his face.
I wanted to propose.
He pauses for a moment, keeping the Jedi on their toes.
An alliance.
A ripple of confusion emanates through the crowd that's gathered. An alliance, Anakin spits. You just tried to kill us all on Mandalore. You put my former master through the worst trials of his life. Now you propose an alliance? I have trouble believing you. Maul chuckles lightly.
Yes, well, I understand that my past actions haven't been conducive to building a relationship between our two parties. However, it seems that we've both encountered a new enemy who does not discriminate in their hatred. We should come together, all of us, and try to understand this foe. Perhaps you're too blinded by your dogma to recognize that an alliance at this moment would be mutually beneficial, but we can work together to defeat whoever this is. Republic, Separatists, Jedi, Sith, Shadow Collective. Whoever sent this army to our galaxy will ravish us all. We should plan together.
For a moment, the Jedi look at each other uncomfortably. There's silence across the bridge. There's a palpable sense of distrust, and Vitiate can feel the chaos that Maul had just thrown into their thought process. Vitiate's Sith attack had just completely upset their perception of the new galactic order. Now, after one day, things began to shift. What an interesting play from the Dathomirian Sith reject.
If you make up your minds, I will be on Dathomir, planning for what comes next. You can make your choice and join me if you'd like. Or you can die with your doctrines held dear.
Maul leaves the Jedi with this offer before cutting off the call. For a moment, the silence is maintained. The Jedi look at one another, sharing suspicious glances.
I don't trust him,
Windu says. Yoda nods.
Dangerous, this path could be. And yet...
Anakin shoots his gaze over to Yoda.
Master, you aren't seriously considering this offer, are you? He inquires.
A powerful ally, Maul could be. Turn him to the light. We could unify against this new enemy and bring peace among our people. We could.
Yoda replies. This is outrageous. Maul is an insane dark side wielder who's been causing us grief for almost this entire war.
We might not have a choice, young Skywalker. If there are more of these attackers out there, we might not be able to deal with them. Some of them even seem force sensitive by the way that they were able to take on Maul and our Mandalorian counterparts. I fear that in order to preserve our way of life, we must join with Maul, if only for a moment.
Windu retorts. Anakin looks towards Padme and the other senators gathered, who seem skeptical. However, when the Chancellor indicates that he believes that this would be a valuable partnership and he'd like to speak with Maul personally, all dissidents seems to go silent. Chancellor, are you sure? Anakin asks. It might not be safe for you. Vitiate then feels a wave of relief wash over him in that instant. It doesn't matter that he'll be unsafe. If he was able to get all of the factions together in one place once again, especially with the Dathomirian Night Sisters present, he could call his hordes to wipe out all threats to his dominion at once. If the Separatists, Republic, Jedi, Sith, and Shadow Collective were destroyed at once, Vitiate's conquest would be swift, and the small numbers in the unknown regions would be insignificant. I appreciate your concern, Anakin, but my duty is to the people of this Republic. I want to discuss this alliance personally with Maul. Perhaps the chance to ally with the Separatists will come as well if Dooku is extended the same offer. I will not stand idly by on Coruscant while this new threat encroaches on our Republic. Vitiate replies as Palpatine. Once again, Anakin senses that something feels a little bit odd about the Chancellor. However, because the Council had paid him no heed earlier, he remains silent about his concerns. The ship alters course towards the Night Sister homeworld, and Vitiate maintains a firm look on his face. Soon, the destiny of the entire galaxy would shift. Soon, his time of conquest would arrive. When the Republic arrives over Dathomir, it also looks like there's a Confederacy delegation in orbit. Grievous's flagship, the Invisible Hand, is locked in orbit of the planet. In addition, it looks like Admiral Yularen, who'd received a call from Anakin and Rex, had moved his personal Venator to the planet as well. Two ships sit in careful dance together, and the Jedi can sense some tension as they pass through the peaceful blockade. When they land on the surface of the foggy world, everything seems quiet. As the Republic delegation makes its way through the mist, Vitiate can sense eyes watching them. While there aren't nearly as many Night Sisters on the planet as there were the last time that the Order had come to Dathomir, the Jedi could still sense the beady eyes watching them from the shadows. Then, as Vitiate begins to sense a commotion, Maul emerges from the mist, determined, with an expression on his devilish face. Ah, so I see that you've chosen to come for talks. Count Dooku is already waiting at my humble abode. Come, let us move. I fear that we have little time. Maul shoots Vitiate a glance, narrowing his eyes. Vitiate knows that Sidious worked closely with the Dathomirian for many years, training him to be an elite assassin before casting him aside like nothing. Perhaps Maul could sense something strange about the Chancellor in that moment. That apprehension would have to be dealt with later if Vitiate was to keep this facade. For an instant, Vitiate reaches across the stars with his mind, hoping to attract the attention of his generals with a thought.
Dathomir,
he whispers in the Force.
Come to Dathomir and see what must be laid to waste.
When the group reaches Maul's lair, they enter the shadowy cavern, feeling the strange grasp of the green mist touching their skin. Vitiate can hear the cries of dead Night Sisters whose souls had been committed to the Coven, their bloody shrieks still echoing through these depraved halls.
I have a bad feeling about this place, Rex says to Anakin. These sisters give me the creeps.
Anakin nods. I agree with you, Rex. Unfortunately, Maul must be our best option for taking down this new threat. It's the Chancellor's wishes. Anakin shoots a glance at Vitiate, who senses some suspicion also emanating from the young Jedi. Perhaps he hadn't been as effective in his deception as he thought. Maul takes the contingent into his strange lair. It's full of Night Sister knickknacks and bizarre Sith artifacts. Vitiate eyes these with awe, hoping that he can take them as trophies when his army decimates this world. Their swords imbued with ancient magic, which help in the Night Sister order to perform better, and other peculiar devices that Vitiate could only imagine what they did. When they reach the central convergence of the cave, Vitiate can sense even more of an imposing presence than before, feeling as though something or someone was watching from the tunnels. Maul begins a strange incantation, his eyes beginning to glow green. The Jedi look at one another with expressions of discomfort, clearly disturbed by the ritual. Vitiate merely stares in awe, watching as Maul manipulates the green mists near a stone table in the middle of the cave. While his expression remains neutral, he's fascinated by this side of the Force, especially since he had never experienced the power of the Night Sisters before. While he had heard whispers of their existence, his empire had never quite reached their world. Now, here he was, standing amongst the witches that he had only seen in visions. As Maul continued to chant, the pale face of a woman clothed in red began to appear. Her eyes were filled with green mist, and her skin was marked with black. She radiated power, and Vitiate knew exactly who she was from the memories of Sidious. This was Mother Talzin, the only Force user who Sidious had ever feared. While Vitiate did not fear her in the same way, he recognized the authority that she had. In his analysis of Sidious's memories, Vitiate saw that his arrogance had led him to be nearly fearless. To make him stumble was clearly a feat. Mother Talzin, Maul says, bowing, I require your guidance. I would be happy to provide it, my child, she says. However, I sense that you are not alone. Vitiate begins to wonder how Talzin remained present in the world of the living. According to Sidious's memories, the sisters had been wiped out by Grievous's droid army. However, here she was, appearing to Maul. Had the sisters harnessed some sort of magic that could provide eternal life? Perhaps this coven could be useful after all. Indeed, Great Mother. I have done what we once thought impossible. It seems that in our quest to sow chaos, there are other actors at play that we could not anticipate. A new foe has emerged, one that was too powerful for all of us combined. I stand here with allies from the Republic, the Confederacy, the Jedi. Maul pauses for a moment and looks in Vitiate's direction. And the Sith. With that, Vitiate knew that his cover had been blown. Maul, who was apparently a man of far more intelligence than Palpatine had surmised, had uncovered that something was strange about him. Perhaps he didn't know the full extent of what was happening, but he at least knew that Sidious and Palpatine were the same people. Vitiate would have to act quickly.
What do you propose, Maul? Windu asks, his arms folded across his chest. I'm not in the habit of negotiating with criminals.
Maul chuckles.
Of course not, Honorable Jedi Master. However, we need to work together in this case. The attack on Mandalore proves that this new foe is well armed, ruthless, and out for blood. Soon they may well consume the entire galaxy with this cursed scourge, and we must counter them. We've been divided for years, but perhaps it's time that we work together, he muses.
How do we know that this isn't just one of your elaborate schemes set up by you and your criminal allies? Windu asks, his hand stroking his chin. Maul bursts into a fit of laughter.
Do you think that we, Crimson Dawn, have the ability to generate a force of such magnitude? Do you really believe that I could have taken Mandalore without playing politics? You think that we have that much brute strength?
Maul composes himself.
I'm flattered, Master Windu, I truly am. However, that is not a feat that I am capable of.
Personally, Maul, I have trouble trusting you at all, Obi-Wan shoots back, his eyes narrowed. You've never been a man of your word. Maul's lips curl into a malicious grin.
On the contrary,
I've always done what I said I would. I have made my intentions very clear with you. It was your fault if you were never able to see them.
For a brief moment, there is absolute silence. Vitiate senses tension between Maul and Kenobi, along with an uncontrollable grief rising within the stoic Jedi for a mere moment. However, that doesn't last, and Obi-Wan's aura soon returns to the calm, collected sensation that it normally was.
So, my friends, Maul smiles. What do you say? Is an alliance in order?
While there is skepticism on all ends, Vitiate decides to say something first. It would be excellent to test his forces.
Absolutely, if the Count is in agreement.
The Jedi and Dooku shoot daggers at each other with their stares. However, they're puppets of the Chancellor. They would go along with whatever he said. And, as Dooku's master, he would also respect whatever wishes that Palpatine had for him in order to support the greater grand plan. Vitiate sensed Dooku's confusion, and this was an immense departure from what he had initially discussed for how they would rule the galaxy. However, Vitiate's Sith needed to be dealt with quickly in his eyes, for their plan to dominate, to be followed through with. So, Dooku nods.
I'll accept a temporary alliance. However, do not expect it to last.
Maul giggles with glee.
Oh, excellent, excellent. All of my old friends finally working together. I'm so excited. What fun!
Immediately after Maul says this, hell is unleashed upon Dathomir. Vitiate smiles as he senses his men arriving, the old ships appearing in the sky above this cursed world. It's clear that all of the other Force users sense it as well. Each of them look at each other with one unease, except for Maul, who seems to be incredibly excited.
Ah, more friends! How wonderful,
he exclaims, clutching his lightsaber in hand, prepared to ignite it. Mother Talzin's essence also seems to permeate the room, creating a sense of power within these dark caves.
Go, my child. Save this galaxy from a dark scourge.
As the group emerges from the tunnels, Dathomir is engulfed in chaos. The skies above the planet are filled with laser fire, and the ships are engaging in an epic battle within the stars. Red and blue plasma intertwine in a bitter dogfight with droids and clone pilots working together to combat the incoming landing craft and swarming hordes of Sith fighters. It was strange to see the ARC-170s standing side by side with vulture droids and buzz droids to confront a shared enemy, but Vitiate still noticed that Maul couldn't contain a smile. This man was delusional, especially if he believed that this little alliance could overcome the might of the Sith. Soon, due to the relatively small size of the blockade around the planet, ships began breaking through the atmosphere. The Jedi raised their blades, prepared to battle whatever Sith monstrosities would rise to battle from the gaping hangars of the landing craft. Vitiate sensed tension forming within the guts of the Jedi. Even Dooku, a man of constant composure, seemed to have a small knot in his stomach. The clones, though, seemed completely calm. Rex and his ARC troopers clutched their weapons with the resolve of men who were bred to be warriors. Cody's contingent was much the same. Additionally, Vitiate sensed little fear within Anakin Skywalker, the man who Sidious believed to be the chosen one prophesied by the Jedi Order many millennia ago. He was only filled with a sense of righteous vengeance. Clearly, he wanted to protect the galaxy from this impending evil. Perhaps the fact that the young senator, who Vitiate had sensed Anakin's feelings of affection towards, had something to do with his fearless demeanor. The fact that the senator from Naboo was present on Dathomir could be impacting Skywalker's emotional state. As soon as the Sith foot soldiers began to land on the planet, more hell broke loose. The remaining Night Sisters began to defend their home with ferocity, shooting their bows from the shadows and casting spells with the enchanting green mist. Clearly, the essence of Mother Talzin had motivated them, spreading throughout their ranks to elevate their consciousness to a further level of awareness. The Jedi ignite their sabers and display why they're the guardians of peace within the galaxy. Yoda catapults over top of the Sith troopers, despite his old age, using his acrobatic lightsaber form to decapitate the encroaching warriors. Mace Windu dances elegantly, using Vapod to manipulate the dark energy of Vitiate's troops against them.
Obi-Wan defends himself well, standing back to back with Anakin as they battle off swarms of enraged Sith warriors. Nearby, Maul hacks down Sith with his double blades, cackling with glee as he does so. It seems as though he's enjoying himself more than he had been in a very long time. Dooku stands up for himself with infinite elegance, displaying why he's the most renowned duelist in the galaxy. He parries vibroblade and lightsabers with ease, slaying Sith who dare underestimate the aging Count. Even Rex and Cody are able to put up a valiant effort against the invasion force, cutting down some of the more junior foot soldiers with their Mandalorian prowess. In a way, the union of these forces to counter Vitiate's attack is beautiful. However, of course, Vitiate couldn't let this last. It seemed that despite the overwhelming odds of a surprise attack, this strange coalition was holding its own, managing to fend off the vicious landing on the surface. There was still one thing that these Jedi hadn't been able to predict, though. It was the power of Vitiate himself. While he's under the protection of Fives, Vitiate begins to laugh slyly. "What's so funny, Chancellor?" Fives asks. Unprompted, Vitiate reaches out his hand, his eyes turning yellow, and grabs Fives by the head using the Force. The clone cries out in pain, unable to grasp what's going on before his head is squished by the seemingly infinitely powerful Force user. The other ARC troopers look at their leader in shock, drawing their weapons to fire at him. "How cute," Vitiate says before waving his hand, sending them all flying into the green mist before he clenches his fist, crushing their chests in an instant. In that moment, Anakin senses the death of some of his troops, so his head turns in the direction of Vitiate, and the maniacal look on the Chancellor's face is prevalent to him. He recognizes that glint of darkness from his expression. Anakin had only ever sensed that much pure evil from within Dooku. This felt like what Skywalker had sensed in the Count, but multiplied tenfold. "Palpatine? What the hell are you doing?" Anakin asks, peeling his attention back from the heat of battle. Vitiate laughs again. "Palpatine is no more, young Jedi," he says, his voice emanating an air of dark authority. This gains the attention of the other Jedi, who look towards their Chancellor, confused and fearful. "Soon, none of your Jedi friends will be either." Anakin shakes his head. "I knew that there was something off about you." "Who are you?" Anakin demands, raising his saber in Vitiate's direction. "I am the rightful ruler of this pitiful galaxy," Vitiate continues. "This republic has turned into a weak shadow of what it once was. They allow corruption and chaos to run rampant, and they can't even handle the antics of a wealthy, disenfranchised former Jedi. And your order." Vitiate pauses, watching his soldiers continue to slay Dathomirians and clones all over the place. "They couldn't even see the manipulation of a Sith Lord pulling the strings from behind the scenes for years within government. Oh, how the mighty have fallen," he muses. "The Republic stands for unity and peace. The Jedi believe in upholding the peace. You're not my Chancellor. I'll never let whoever you are take this galaxy that I love away from me," Anakin retaliates. "Oh, young Skywalker, I don't want to take the galaxy from you. I want to give you all of the power you can imagine. I want you to join me. Together we can discover the secrets of the Force that your Jedi refuse to tell you. I've seen Palpatine's memories. I know what you told him about your mother. Imagine if we could bring her back. Imagine if we could stop anyone else that you love from dying. I could show you and give you everything that you desire. All that you have to do is join me, young one," Vitiate says, reaching out his hand towards Anakin. Anakin's eyes narrow. "Why would you ever think that I'd trust you?" he spits. Then he rushes towards Vitiate, ready for a fight. Normally, Vitiate would simply have eviscerated an opponent like Anakin with a mere breath. However, he still felt that the boy might be convinced to join him. So Vitiate merely parries, and he brings Palpatine's blade to his hand. "You're making a mistake, Anakin. I can sense your rage and hatred. I feel the love that you have for that senator from Naboo. I know that you seek to save her. I can help you unlock the secrets to immortality. Do you really think that the Jedi, who have been resentful of your power since you were inducted into the Order, will show you how to help Padme? Vitiate muses, pressing Anakin with a flurry of lightsaber attacks. Anakin remains strong, though. You lied to me about who you were. You're probably the one responsible for whoever these invaders are. You've been manipulating the Force for who knows how long. Even if the Jedi and I haven't seen eye to eye on everything, at least they're honest with me. I don't believe anything you say. He lunges at Vitiate with a saber stab, and Vitiate pushes him aside with the Force, causing Anakin to stumble and fall on his face. Vitiate laughs. Skywalker, I only want peace for the galaxy. Under the watch of the Jedi, this government has abandoned the people and created the conditions that led to the chaos you see now. If they truly cared about justice. Vitiate pauses, savoring his moment of victory. You never would have been a slave, and your mother would have never died at the hands of the Tusken Raiders. Anakin feels anger bubbling in his chest. He looks at Palpatine, or whatever entity had consumed him, and he sees how his friends are struggling against the Sith soldiers. While Rex and Cody are putting up valiant efforts with their clone squads, they're still being overwhelmed by the sheer brutality of the Sith troopers. Obi-Wan continues to elegantly parry the blows of many attackers while standing back to back with Dooku, but he also sees the hordes are closing in on them. The remaining Night Sisters are trailing behind the attacks from the Sith, falling in droves to the sheer power of their adversaries. In that moment, Anakin knows that he can summon more strength. He stands, his eyes narrowed, staring at Vitiate with immense intensity. I know that if you were ruling the galaxy, everyone would be a slave. Then he rushes towards the Dark Lord. Vitiate merely shakes his head, angling his fingers slightly, which paralyzes Anakin and lifts him into the air. Your lack of vision disappoints me, Skywalker. I thought that you would have more faith in my plans for this pathetic galaxy. He tosses Anakin into a nearby cloud of mist. The Chosen One cries out, clearly outmatched by whoever had taken the body of his former mentor. He struggles to get back up, but he feels Vitiate's boot pressed deep into the red mud of Dathomir. You think that you can challenge me? You're like an insect. I could squash you with the snap of my fingers, if I wanted to. I have seen empires rise and fall over millennia. You're just a boy to me. But I could make you so much more. If you'd let me, I can help you unlock the secrets of the Force and save your loved ones. Join me, young one, and we can bring balance and greatness to this galaxy for the better. Anakin looks up at Sidious, sensing the raw power radiating from this being. He knows that if he doesn't join the dark side, this apparition that had taken over Palpatine's body, he will die. However, Anakin would rather be killed, battling for what he believed in, than twist himself into something unrecognizable in order to survive and further a despotic agenda of galactic conquest. Anakin looks Vitiate directly in the eyes before spitting at his feet, his chest full of determination. It looks like you've made your decision, Vitiate says, sighing. What a shame. You would have been such an excellent addition to my empire. Just as Vitiate raises his hand to strike Anakin with another force blow, something unexpected happens. Anakin closes his eyes, ready to be consumed by a blast of dark side energy. However, it never comes. When Anakin opens his eyes, he sees a red blade thrust through Vitiate's chest. Anakin's face contorts into an expression of surprise, confused. It seems that in your arrogance, my master, you failed to sense my presence. How fitting. You never cared about my skills anyway, did you? I was simply a pawn in your game. If that's even you anymore. If you would have truly respected me, if you had not been arrogant, perhaps you would have foreseen your demise at my hands. Maul's distinct, slightly insane voice rings through Anakin's ears as Vitiate falls to the ground, Palpatine's body losing its spark. In his last moment of life, Vitiate lets out a bone-curdling scream before a burst of dark side energy explodes from his body, knocking Anakin backwards and Maul off of his feet. Then, the lifeless body of the Chancellor sits before them, devoid of spirit, and whose threat no longer existed in the galaxy. Anakin stays on the ground for a moment, huffing and puffing with exhaustion. If it hadn't been for Maul, he wouldn't be there, and Palpatine wouldn't be dead as he was now. A couple of moments later, the Dathomirian stands above Skywalker, extending his hand towards him. Wordlessly, Anakin accepts, pulling himself up with the help of Maul. "Thank you," Anakin says, nodding in respect. "I didn't do it for you, Skywalker," Maul replies, pausing pensively for a moment. "But you're welcome." Anakin looks around to see the devastation of Dathomir again. Recently, General Grievous had committed many atrocities on this world, wiping out so many Night Sisters and taking away the magic of their planet. Now, once again, the red sands of the world were covered in the blood of its inhabitants, along with the bodies of countless droids and clones. Even still, the battle continued with resiliency. Rex and Cody fought alongside Jesse and their fallen brother, Fives, taking down Sith with the precision of trained warriors, even though they were outnumbered. Mace Windu used his unique Vapod to continue countering the attacks of his opponents. Yoda continues to bounce around with acrobatic precision, slaying troops left and right. Anakin smiles, knowing that the death of whatever monstrosity had consumed Sidious would be a massive blow to the confidence of this army. His energy had clearly been motivating them with some dark form of forced meditation, because Anakin could see that they had slowed down. After taking a couple of steps, eager to get back into the battle, Anakin realizes that he's simply too weak to even stand after his encounter with Vitiate. He collapses again, Maul steadying him as he falls. The last thing that Anakin sees in the sky before his eyes close is a fleet of Venators emerging over Dathomir, ready to provide backup for everyone fighting in this battle. When Anakin wakes up, he's laying in an infirmary aboard one of the Republic Venators. He sees Padme standing next to him alongside Senator Organa, a battered Obi-Wan, and Colonel Yularen. The table next to him has a massive bowl of Bantha Stew in it, one of his favorite meals. Shmi used to make it for him as a young boy. Anakin's slightly confused, wondering what happened. Then, everything rushes back to him. "Where's Maul? What happened on Dathomir? What happened to the Separatists?" Anakin asks. Obi-Wan calms his former apprentice, informing him that there was no need to worry. Reinforcements had arrived on Dathomir, and without the support of their bizarre leader, the Sith armies started to implode, collapsing with a lack of solid leadership and the power struggles between various generals trying to have their way. The Venators were able to wipe out the fleet that had emerged above Dathomir, and they joined forces with the droids of the Confederacy to send them to their knees. As for Maul, well, he slipped from our grasp again, Obi-Wan said. We were hoping to bring him to the Republic for custody and put him in the courts for all of his galactic crimes. However, when the dust settled, we couldn't find him. Anakin's eyes narrowed. He saved my life. Maul's the reason we won that battle. If we find him, well, I wonder if he could be redeemed. Obi-Wan strokes his beard, thoughtfully. Perhaps, my young Padawan. Perhaps, he says, with pain behind his eyes. Bail and Yularen wish Anakin well, congratulating him on his courage and hoping for a speedy recovery before leaving with Obi-Wan. Padme decides to stay a little bit longer, hugging her husband with a warm embrace. I'm so happy you're here, Annie. I thought I was going to lose you. Anakin smiles, embracing his wife back. I could never leave you, my love, he says. After this encounter, the Confederacy is far more willing to enter conversations with the Republic. Because Palpatine died, and with the Jedi and clones knowing the story behind what happened, along with the battle camera footage of Palpatine joining the strange army, the Senate is shocked with the betrayal of their leader. They want to end the conflict, especially now that they saw that this had all been some farce. The Senate elects Bail Organa to succeed Palpatine, a man who is passionate, yet moderate. He wins on a platform of working hard to find an agreement with the Separatists on how to peacefully secede, understanding that Palpatine's agenda had tried to twist their right to self-determination into something terrible to further his own ends. Bail Organa and Dooku agree to a plan that will bring an end to the war, along with help each other rebuild following the destruction of their many planets. Peace is established, and the Confederacy commits its rebuilding efforts to amicable relations with the Republic. While Dooku was once enticed by the dark side, he was appalled by the betrayal of his master. He had no idea about Vitiate, and he felt used. Standing next to his former brothers in arms had felt so right, especially when they'd been battling alongside his former master, Yoda. While Dooku had no intention of rejoining the Order, he does wish to reach out to them again, and he apologizes for how he had become misdirected and twisted. He begins to return to the light, committing to a more fair and equitable confederacy rather than one where corporations dominated the government. While he recognizes the importance of the major corporate supporters and encouraging business, he also begins to advocate for more crackdowns on labor laws and practice of slavery within borders of the Confederacy. He also starts to put his own fortune to good use, donating to his community on Sereno and investing in local culture. Dooku becomes beloved by all, and he's well respected by his Jedi colleagues for acknowledging his wrongdoing. Anakin, after his encounter with Vitiate, is tired. He no longer wants to see war, and he begins to wonder about his future as a Jedi. If Dooku could become a successful man outside the Order, then so could he. When Padme gives him the news about carrying twins, this cements Anakin's decision. He wants to leave the Jedi Order and raise a family. When he tells the Council, they understand. For the first time, Anakin feels as though he's being respected by the Order, especially when Obi-Wan commits to visiting him on Naboo and being an uncle figure to his children. So, while Padme continues to serve her people in the Senate, Anakin parts ways with the Order and commits to raising their children, training them in the ways of the Force, but with a slightly different angle than the Jedi had on their philosophies. They'd grown up on the beautiful world of Naboo, and Anakin frequently takes them to visit Uncle Jar Jar and Boss Nass in Otogunga. In order to counter the resurgence of the Sith once more, Bail Organa and the Confederacy Parliament sign a defense agreement with one another. While they now have peace, they decide that exploring the unknown regions for the source of this threat would be a valuable endeavor. They join forces to discover more about their mysterious enemies, and they embark to the darker corners of the galaxy to try and silence them. Together, the former enemies embrace one another in order to counter a greater threat to galactic stability than war could have ever been. In the chaos, Maul had escaped in his small ship, knowing that both the Republic and Separatists would be gunning for his head after what he had tried to pull on Mandalore. He returns to the shadows, knowing that his criminal empire had been upended, especially since his position as the secret ruler of Mandalore had been compromised. The planet had been thrust into civil war between Bo-Katan's Night Owls and House Saxon, something that Maul wanted no part in. So, he would sit in the shadows and continue to wait, seeking an opportune time to seize power again. While his old master had been eliminated from the fray, Kenobi was still alive, waiting to be killed. Maul would ensure that he would not only take the love of his life, but he would actually end his life entirely. While the galaxy is put into an uneasy peace, there's still plenty of uncertainty about its future. Maul, the criminal underworld, Mandalore, and the remaining Sith Empire would be threats to the Republic and the Confederacy that they would have to watch out for. However, now, things were relatively stable. Anakin was happy. The Jedi Order had returned to their more powerful, peaceful role, and the Republic was no longer in chaos. The Sith invasion had been unsuccessful. Finally, some calm had taken hold of the galaxy.